Well, PRDC, and it's still a pretty good name for it. It is a respiratory disease complex, and there are a lot of factors that play into that complex. I would not limit it to just mycoplasma and PCV. I would also add in influenza virus, PRRS virus, and even the secondary bacterial things like Pasteurella and APP can all play a role in PRDC from the infectious organism side. Prevalence-wise, PRDC is still very common. Run into it, maybe not on a daily basis, but it's certainly routine. It's not uncommon at all to see it. Clinical disease typically manifests itself as, coughing pigs, thumping pigs, and weight loss, which are the pretty obvious clinical signs of that complex. But, what you don't see as readily that really do end up costing you a lot would be your subsequent losses, such as increased tail biting, increased gastric ulcers, reduced feed conversion, and poor average daily gain. And you'll see groups of pigs go through this type of syndrome fairly commonly.
One of the presentations here in North Carolina dealt with the impact of stressors on the digestive system, especially of young pigs, or perhaps young pigs who had at early weaning, had some stress in their digestive system. Given that, are these the kind of stressors that could well impact that pig who may have been compromised early in life?
Well, I think they're a little bit different. Specifically, the presentations we heard today talked about pigs that were weaned early on, so they were weaned at a younger age than we typically would wean pigs, which led to increased gut permeability, which puts a generalized stress on the immune system from the intestinal tract, because it is a very important immune organ, the intestinal tract is. So it probably does have some role in how well the pig's general immune system behaves, but I think it's a little different than what we're talking about in terms of the respiratory disease complex we see in mid to late finishing animals.
Mm-hmm. Good. Approach to reducing. What is your approach to reducing the impact of the porcine respiratory disease complex in the systems? What are some of the tools you've got in your toolbox?
Well, in talking about how to reduce PRDC, it's sort of like talking about how to build a house. There are a lot of different parts involved in it. It's not as simple as just a simple plan and you administer that plan. For several of the pathogens, specifically PRRS, circovirus, and mycoplasma, as the primary causes of PRDC, one of the first things I look at is it's all about the gilts going into a sow farm and the sow farm stability itself. I really think you've got to place pigs or try to work with pigs that are not heavily infected with those pathogens at weaning, meaning I don't want to be dealing with a pig that's highly colonized with those organisms when they enter into the growing phase. I think if you've got pigs that are highly colonized, it's just incredibly difficult to manage that pig to not end up becoming a PRDC flow for you. So after you get the sow farm pretty much stabilized to the point that you're not weaning pigs that are heavily colonized, you have to recognize that to put a vaccination program in place to reduce the losses with PRDC, you got to realize that it takes time after immunization before that pig really becomes immune and won't develop clinical disease. So you've got to get your timing right on vaccinations before colonization of that pig takes place in the growing population. You can manipulate that through the flow of animals, how you're flowing animals, making sure they're all in, all out, and how you even flow sites. If you can be all in, all out by site to make sure you don't continually contaminate pigs going into a finishing operation, for example. I think that's very important. The next thing to kind of think about would be medications. If you can identify when pigs are developing PRDC and it's very consistent over time, you can certainly add in some antibiotics at strategic times to reduce the bacterial challenges that come behind PRDC. And they will work. They don't fix the problem, but they do help mediate some of the losses. One thing about medications is a lot of times the dynamics change over time of when the challenge takes place, so it can be pretty difficult to maintain a program that's effective all the time. You got to be changing it and monitoring it all the time.
I assume your use of antibiotics from a prophylactic viewpoint has changed somewhat over the years, and that tendency has been to maybe reduce overall amounts given, but trying to be, as you said, more strategic, hitting them at the right spot at the right time with the right medicine for the right bug.
That's exactly correct. Yet we've had to change a lot in what we use for withdrawal times as the export markets have become more important over time. We're a lot more conscious of withdrawal times related to tetracyclines now than we were, 10, 12 years ago. So all those antibiotics that we used for a late finishing PRDC, we really don't have those options anymore for treating pigs at that age. So we really spend more time now thinking about prevention more than we do treatment out in the growing pig population.
Mm-hmm. Good. So we really talked about the role of vaccines in your operation. So using vaccines, other PRDC mitigating protocols. As I look at this question, I'll just read it. How have the use of vaccines and the other PRDC mitigating protocols helped manage that issue in these systems, such as reduced incidence, improved production metrics, healthier pigs, breeding herds, etc.?
A couple of things about vaccines that I would talk a little bit about. We talked about the fact that we need to start with a pig that's not already colonized or infected with the pathogen.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about needing time after vaccination of that pig for him to develop a proper immune response before he's challenged. And the other thing is, when you've administered a vaccine and you think you've done everything right and you still have failures, I always back up and really spend some time thinking about that sow flow, gilt acclimation programs. What can we do to reduce that colonization as much as we possibly can to give that vaccine the opportunity to work? And that takes some effort. It takes a lot of monitoring, and it takes a lot of time to look at that. I think PRDC is always going to be an issue. As long as we have pigs in confinement, we're going to have PRDC. That's just the way it's going to be, I think. But we can decrease the incidence and severity of the losses associated with it. For me, I like to monitor average daily gain, feed conversion, mortality rates, cull rates in growing pig populations. And when I see flows, when it's predictable by sow flow that their performance is declining, then I go back and I look at the vaccination program on the sows. I look at the gilt acclimation program and the gilts. I look at how we're flowing the nursery. I look at how we're flowing the finishing sites they're going to really try to slow down that PRDC as much as I possibly can. So it's always a work in progress. There's always going to be a bottom 25%, and all we can do is try to make them as good as we can.
Yeah, that's a good point. Program here today at the South Carolina Health Conference, things that really take-home items for you, things that you were going to chew on that hour and 10-minute drive home, which may well be, can I get the boat out this weekend or not? I don't know.
I think I'm going to spend a little bit of time thinking about weaning age some more, and the long-term consequences of that. I think it's something we are certainly aware of, but I'm going to spend some more time thinking about it.
I thought it really interesting, his comment that, this really won't affect the daily gain issues. This won't affect some of those things that we use as our markers until the stress hits.
That's right. Yep. And I thought, there was one slide on there that really stood out to me. It was talked about heat stress and the change in gut permeability in response to chronic heat stress. And we deal with a lot of chronic heat stress in July and August in North Carolina. And so spend some time thinking about that too. We spent a lot of time today talking about PED virus and how that spread across the country. And going to spend some time thinking about what we need to do to handle not only the next PED type disease, but other a true foreign animal disease that comes in. And we really need to spend some time thinking about our industry and our infrastructure and what we need to do to prevent spreading another disease all the way across the country like we did with PED.
Dr. Polson's comment about the next one might be a large caliber.
Yes, yes, and I think this one was pretty large caliber. I mean, it was a tough time last year.
Yeah, it was.
Fortunately, we've been helped out with markets quite a bit, and that has been awfully nice. I just wonder if we're investing what we need to protect ourselves in the future with these revenues we have today.
Good comment. Anything else? Works for me. Well done,
good.
Dr. Matthew Turner. I appreciate it.